In the heart of the night, a white car stood like a lone sentinel on an abandoned road, its headlights slicing through the surrounding darkness. Inside the car, a woman sat, clutching a phone in trembling hands, her clothes and skin tainted with the stain of blood. Her voice trembled as she dialed a number, her fear palpable even through the phone. "Hello, Yuan Z," she uttered, her voice cracking with terror. "I've killed someone," her words hung in the air, heavy with dread. 2 hours before, the same woman had been behind the wheel, her thoughts afloat in a conversation with a friend on the other end of the line. Her friend's teasing speculation pierced the air. Could he be proposing? "Is that why he invited your friends for your anniversary?" With a wry smile tugging at her lips, the woman replied, "If it's true, you better capture it all on video for me. But even if it's not, it's been a while since we've all gathered." Laughter resonated through the phone before her friend hung up, their friendship steeped in the familiarity of being perpetual third wheels. The woman's smile persisted as she drove, lost in her thoughts. Suddenly, a figure on the roadside caught her attention, an outstretched hand, a man cradling another in his lap, both appearing inert. She halted the car, curiosity mingling with apprehension. As uncertainty coursed through her veins, she steeled herself, her resolve taking hold. The car door swung open, and her determination led her out onto the road. "Should I call an ambulance?" she voiced aloud, her concern genuine. Yet, before she could make another move, a resounding sound reverberated, capturing her attention. Something hit her head, making her unconscious. Minutes or hours later, her eyelids fluttered open, her head pounding with pain. A man in a red vest stood nearby, engaged in a somber conversation with another, referred to as Jie. Jie, garbed in a black t-shirt and military pants, his face pallid, was washing his hands, a grim scene painted by the moonlight. The woman watched, her fear mounting, as two figures emerged holding a spade, their intentions ominous. A frisson of unease swept through her, but she rallied her inner strength. The woman's eyes darted to Jie, who sat calmly before her, his demeanor unwavering. The world seemed to shrink, and with her heart pounding, she began to crawl, her voice trembling, "Brothers, please spare me. You can have my car, my money, spare my life." Amid the tension, a man with the spade approached, his grip on her chin a reminder of her dire situation. The desperation intensified, sweat trickling down her temple. She met Jie's gaze, a silent plea for compassion in her eyes. Yet, his expression remained unchanged, his caution evident. "Don't mess with the blood," Jie's words echoed, tightening the noose of fear around her. In a swift, brutal movement, she was seized by the man in the red vest, dragged behind a tree, and her head slammed into its rough bark. A vice-like grip encircled her throat, as one of the men instructed her to comply for a swift demise. During the struggle, a strip of her top slipped from her shoulder. The man's eyes gleamed with malicious intent, a disturbing sight. Abandoning his grasp, he lamented the waste of killing her so unceremoniously. Another man jeered, questioning whether he was feeling lustful again. Gazing toward Jie, he asked in a flattering tone whether it had been too long since they last enjoyed a woman's company. Coughing, the woman gasped for breath, clinging to life. Jie's proclamation that they were fugitives sent chills down her spine. She trembled, overhearing the man in the red vest discussing her fate with his companions. Seeking to secure her safety, she turned to him, promising her compliance in exchange for her life. The man's grip tightened around her neck, his assurance that it was a temporary arrangement offered in hushed tones. Jie's stern nod urged them to proceed. The man in the red vest lifted the woman's chin, his words laden with a perverse sense of camaraderie. As he danced with her, her mind raced. Could they delay their violent intentions by catering to their desires? Their intentions turned darker as the man placed her inside the car, his hand exploring her neck. "Just remain cooperative, and you'll be fine," he said with an unsettling grin. She steeled herself, recognizing that retaliation wasn't an option, survival was her only goal. The man's forceful actions set her teeth chattering with fear. Yet, in the back pocket of the seat, her eyes fell upon a wooden handle, a knife left by her boyfriend. A surge of realization propelled her into action. She seized the knife, determined not to die. With a swift, fierce motion, she drove the knife into her attacker's neck, blood spattering everywhere. Outside the car, one of the men, stood smoking, puzzled by the sudden silence. The glare of approaching headlights filled Jie's vision, and in a moment of horror, he realized the car was hurtling toward him. Before he could react, Hu intervened, pushing Jie to safety. Unfortunately, the act placed Hu directly in the path of the oncoming car. He was struck and flung into the air, landing heavily on the road. Terror gripping her, the woman sped away from the scene, her eyes reflecting a deadly determination. Exhausted and covered in blood, she finally halted the car on a remote stretch of road. Trembling violently, she took labored breaths, her face a canvas of horror. Clutching herself, she sought solace and screamed, releasing the pent-up frustration and terror that had taken hold. In the aftermath, her body shook, and her clothes were stained with blood. Summoning every ounce of strength, she dialed her boyfriend's number, her voice quaking as she pleaded, "Call the cops, Yuan Z, call the cops. I am in trouble." Some time later, the white car was parked beneath the crimson glow of a red moon, its outline perched on the precipice of a cliff. Within the vehicle, a woman sat with a perplexed expression etched on her face. Abruptly, a hand struck the window glass of her car, revealing Jie's frustrated countenance. His gaze was intense as he clenched his fist and shattered the car's window. Seizing her mouth, he brandished a sharp instrument, poised to strike. But before impact, the woman's eyes shot open, realizing it was a mere dream. Beside her, her boyfriend Yuan Zi sat, inquiring if it was the recurring nightmare. She instinctively clung to him, confessing that Jie had appeared in her dream, catching her this time. Seeking to reassure her, Yuan Zi reminded her that Jie had been executed, there was no reason to fear. He gently cupped her shoulders and advised her to freshen up and have breakfast. Agreeing, she replied with a subdued "okay." As Yuan Zi left the room, Yen gazed at the balcony and whispered to herself, for years since that nightmarish incident. Some time later, Yen entered the bathroom to freshen up. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she contemplated how, occasionally, she still felt trapped in the depths of that hellish memory, especially when half awake. While brushing her teeth, Yuan Zi entered, offering her options for a morning beverage, orange juice, milk, or coffee. With a smile, she chose orange juice. As Yuan Zi readied himself for the day, he mused about the school's reopening and offered her a ride, which she declined playfully. She emphasized the importance of not giving students the impression that she had a chauffeur. Their playful banter underscored the comfortable life they had built together over the past 3 years in Banzhou City, a period during which the darker memories of Yan's past slowly began to fade. After her graduation, Yan had become a counselor at Nanzhou University. While seated at her desk working, a student named Su Chengbo approached her, informing her that a student named Yujua was missing. Yujua's belongings from the previous semester remained untouched in her room. Yan assured Su Chengbo that she would handle the situation. Just as she ended their conversation, her phone rang, with a voice on the other end instructing her to move her car to the basement to accommodate a private bus. She agreed and proceeded to park her car in the basement, noticing that the new car park seemed darker than usual, triggering a sense of unease. As she exited the car, a sudden chill ran down her spine. She surveyed the dimly lit basement, questioning why only her car occupied the space if a bus was expected. Unnerved, she suddenly sensed a presence behind her. A man emerged from the shadows, inquiring about directions to the foreign language department. Shock gripped her as recognition dawned upon her. This voice, she thought, would forever remain etched in her memory. Her heart raced as she turned to face the man in the black suit, her body trembling. Stumbling in her high heels, she fell to the ground. The man's voice was soothing as he inquired about her well-being and apologized for startling her. Despite his words, fear gripped her, and she warned him of surveillance cameras. He continued his polite inquiry while she moved backward, finally managing to stand up and flee toward the stairs. Her car keys fell to the ground, and he picked them up. Another man appeared, addressing the first man as Mr. Fu and instructing him to wait in the car. Yen continued running until she paused, calling Yuan Zi in distress. She urgently informed him that he was here, that Jie had come for her. Yuan Zi attempted to reassure her, stating that it was impossible since Jie had been executed 3 years ago. However, he advised her to stay near teachers or students and agreed to pick her up later. With her boyfriend's instructions in mind, Yen cautiously made her way to her office. Outside, she noticed a group of curious girls peering in, prompting her to approach them and inquire about the situation. Near the office window, she spotted Mr. Fu standing. He caught her gaze and greeted her, saying, "Hi, you must be Miss He Yen." Bowing slightly, Mr. Fu greeted Yen, introducing himself as Yujia's cousin, and explaining that he was there to assist with Yujia's school withdrawal procedures. He apologized for any offense caused earlier and shared his confusion about the situation. As the girls outside began complimenting his appearance, he retrieved her key and offered it to her. Yen avoided eye contact and thanked him, requesting that he leave the key there as she needed to verify the situation with Yujia. Mr. Fu then handed her his mobile phone, explaining that he had Yujia's number for verification. Using the phone, Yen contacted Yujia, who confirmed that Mr. Fu was indeed her cousin and his words were genuine. Yen reconsidered her initial impression of him, acknowledging that he felt different from the criminal she feared. Approaching Mr. Fu again, she returned the phone and informed him about the application form he needed to fill out. She handed him the form, explaining that Yujia's signature was required and asked him to provide a medical proposal for the suspension of studies from a hospital on his next visit. After receiving the form, he requested her contact information, to which she irritably replied that he could reach her at the office. As he tucked the form into his coat, he offered a smirk, pulling out an identity card and presenting it to her. Curious, Yen glanced at the card, revealing the name Fu Xingxing. Doubt crept into her mind, wondering if her initial assessment was wrong. Politely thanking him for his visit, she gestured toward the exit. With a mischievous smile, he inquired if he resembled someone who had hurt her, insinuating her fear. Whispering in her ear, he left her startled. Before leaving, he waved and said goodbye. Driving home, Yan's unease lingered, leading her to ruminate on the encounter. Yuan Zi, her husband, suggested they seek clarification from Officer Chen. At the police station, Officer Chen greeted them warmly. Before he could speak, Yen expressed her purpose, inquiring about the case from 4 years ago and whether the criminal Shen Jijia had been executed. Worry etched on her face, she clarified that she was talking about Shen Jijia. Recalling the past, Officer Chen acknowledged that he remembered. Yen pressed further, mentioning that she had encountered a man who resembled him. Officer Chen urged her to take a seat, and explained that he had interrogated Shen Jijia and had signed the execution papers himself. Despite the execution, Shen Jijia had volunteered to donate his corneas before his death, leaving a lasting impression. Shocked by this revelation, Yen continued to question if the man she met was truly Shen Jijia. Yuan Zi interjected, suggesting Officer Chen verify the man's identity through his ID card. Yen retrieved a piece of paper with his details, and Officer Chen used the information to cross-reference. After a moment of silence, he assured her that the man they encountered was not Shen Jijia. Officer Chen escorted Yen to her car, encouraging her to call him if she encountered the man again. Grateful, she agreed, and they parted ways. Later that evening, as Yuan Zi prepared dinner, Yen shared her desire to pursue her doctorate. Excitedly, Yuan Zi suggested that she could quit her job if needed, but she playfully pointed out the financial implications. Touching her cheek affectionately, he assured her that he had a job, and she could follow her passion. The playful banter transitioned to a romantic moment, but their tranquility was interrupted by a mysterious phone call. A woman on the other end informed Yen that her student Su Chengbo had stolen something and that Yen needed to visit her. Shocked, Yen's evening took an unexpected turn.